Welcome to the pleasant town of Barchester. Here the Reverend Septimus Harding has resided for many years. He has been a widower for some time and has 2 daughters, the elder of whom married 12 years ago Reverend Dr. Theophilus Grantly, Archdeacon of Barchester, Rector of Plumstead Episcopi and son of the Bishop. 10 years ago Mr. Harding became precentor of the cathedral, and as was customary alongside that position, became warden of Hiram's Hospital. The hospital is a delightful almshouse, built with money left by a John Hiram in his will. The warden appointed to the almshouse was to receive a certain sum annually out of the rents of meadows and closes, also willed by John Hiram, way back in the 1400s. Over the centuries, those have become covered with a row of houses, and the value of the property has increased year by year and century by century. Now the warden enjoys £800 a year. Murmurs have been heard in Barchester that perhaps the proceeds of John Hiram's property had not been fairly divided. Those murmurs have reached the ears of a certain John Bold, who is determined to do something about them.
My dear, look at that John Bold at your father's again today. I must say your father is very imprudent.
He always was. There's nothing new in that.
No, my dear, there's nothing new, I know that. But at the present, such imprudence is... I tell you, if he does not take care what he's about, John Bold will be off with Eleanor. Oh, good heavens.
I do not like John Bold. He is a great deal too conceited for my liking. But then Eleanor does, and it would be the best thing in the world if they were to be married. Bold wouldn't bother about Hiram's Hospital if he were Papa's son-in-law.
Oh, good heavens.
Mr. Bold is here to see you, Warden.
It is a pleasure to see you. I always say that an evening call is worth 10 in the morning. Real social talk never begins till after dinner. That's why I like to dine early, so as to get as much as I can of it.
Quite true, Mr. Harding. But I fear I owe you much apology. For it is on business that I have called just now. I wish to speak to you about Hiram's Hospital.
Well, anything I can tell you, I should be most happy.
It's about the accounts.
But my dear fellow, all I know is that they pay me £800 a year. Go to Chadwick, he knows all about the accounts.
I have the greatest regard for you, Mr. Harding. The truest respect. The most sincere...
Thank you, Mr. Bold, I'm much obliged. But never mind that. I'm as likely to be in the wrong as another man. Quite as likely.
I fear that there is reason to think that John Hiram's will is not being carried out to the letter, Mr. Harding. And I have been asked to see into it.
Very well. I've no objection on earth. And now we need not say another word about it.
Only one more word, Mr. Harding. Chadwick has referred me to Cox and Cummins, and I think it my duty to apply to them for some statement about the hospital. In what I do, I may appear to be interfering, and I hope you will forgive me for doing so.
Mr. Bold, if you act justly, say nothing in this matter but the truth, and use no unfair weapons in carrying out your purpose, I shall have nothing to forgive. Pray do what you consider to be your duty. I can give you no assistance, neither will I offer you any obstacle. Oh, here comes Eleanor. We're going for tea, huh?
Oh, good day, sir. Eleanor?
But, Bishop, did you ever read John Hiram's will?
Oh, well, yes. That is, I'm sure I did. Well, I must have when I was first installed to the scene. In any event, I know I have the absolute right to present to the wardenship, and the income of the warden has been settled for many, many years.
But the question is, who has the power to settle it? If, as this young man says, the will provides that the proceeds of the property are to be divided into shares, who has the power to alter those provisions?
I suppose they alter themselves over the years. I really do think you should speak to Dr. Grantly. He will put you right on these matters. Yes, Dr. Grantly is the man.
But, Bishop, suppose that I cannot bring myself to agree with Dr. Grantly. Suppose that I find that, after inquiry, the young man is right and that I am wrong.
Does this pestilent intruder have any friends in Barchester?
By which I assume you are referring to John Bold. Truth to tell, he is very intimate at my own house, Bishop. Indeed, I like Mr. Bold much personally, and to be frank, well, that is to say, I have sometimes thought it not improbable that he would be my second son-in-law.
Good heavens, I mean to say, Bold and Eleanor.
I did not say that there is any engagement between them. Had there been, Eleanor would have told me. I see, though, that they are fond of each other.
But Mr. Harding, how are you to oppose him if he is your son-in-law?
I don't mean to oppose him. It is he that opposes me. If anything is to be done in defence, I suppose Chadwick...
Oh, the Archdeacon will see to that. Were the young man twice his brother-in-law, the Archdeacon will never be deterred from doing what he feels to be right.
Dr. Grantly and John Bold are not yet brothers. In all probability, they never will be. I would ask, in any case, that Eleanor's name is not mentioned in any discussion with your son, the Archdeacon, regarding the hospital.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Now, I must go back to my duties.
Mr. Chadwick is here to see you, sir.
Ah, Chadwick.
I have received a letter from Cox and Cummings, Archdeacon. They have not as yet received a notice from Bold, or the bedesmen, or any of their representatives. They suggest that should any proceeding really be undertaken by the bedesmen, it would be expedient to consult with the Queen's Counsel, Sir Abraham Finlay Smythe.
I quite agree with him. Perfectly correct. Finlay Smythe is no doubt the best man. A thorough churchman, a sound conservative. Yes, indeed. In every respect, the best man we could get. He's in the house too, which is a great thing.
Indeed, sir.
Really, this pestilent Bold, he should be torn down.
Ellie, my dear, please fetch my spectacles from indoors.
We must be doing something soon, you know. Of course, you've heard of this petition that this Bold has gulled the bedesmen into signing.
Well, yes, I have heard of it.
Well, we mustn't allow these people to cut the ground from under us while we sit looking on. I can't understand why you let them do it.
Do what?
Why, listen to this Bold. Why did you not get Bunce to destroy the petition? He's a favourite of yours.
That would hardly have been wise. Besides, I care for all the bedesmen equally.
Well, I must go up to the palace and answer it, I suppose. It'll be a very short answer they'll get, I can tell you.
But why shouldn't they petition, Archdeacon?
Why shouldn't they? I'll let them know why they shouldn't.
I have received an invitation from Eleanor Harding to an evening party next week.
And I have received an invitation to the same meeting from Mr. Harding.
How odd that they should send two notes. If Mr. Harding becomes fashionable, the world is going to change. I suppose we must send separate answers and both say that we should be very happy
You'll
to...
go, of course, Mary. I fear I cannot go to Mr. Harding's house as a friend anymore, just at present.
Oh, John, why not? Ah, you've quarrelled with Eleanor.
No, indeed. I've no quarrel with her. As yet. I've taken up the cause of the 12 old men of Hiram's hospital. And, of course, that brings me into contact with Mr. Harding. I may have to oppose him. Perhaps injure him.
What is it you mean to do for the old men?
Well, it's a long story. John Hiram made a will and left his property in charity to certain poor old men. And the proceeds, instead of going to the benefit of those men, go chiefly into the pocket of the warden and the bishop's steward.
And you mean to take away Mr. Harding's share of it?
I mean to inquire about it. I mean to see if I can that justice be done to the poor of Barchester. I mean, in short, to put the matter right.
And Eleanor, John?
Eleanor? That is, Miss Harding. If she thinks fit, that is, if her father, or indeed if they find it a necessity. Well, there is no necessity now to talk about Eleanor Harding.
Oh, John, dear John, pray think better of this.
Better of what?
Of this about the hospital. Nothing can call upon you. No duty can require you to set yourself against your oldest, your best friend. Oh, John, think of Eleanor. You'll break her heart, and your own. Pray for my sake, John. Give it up. You know how fond you are of Mr. Harding. Pray give it up. You will make yourself and her father miserable for a dream of justice. You will never make those 12 men happier than they are now.
I cannot give it up. Besides, it has gone beyond this close. A petition has been presented to the bishop. That petition has also been sent by Finney to the London newspapers. And that was not my choice. But there it is. The thing is done now. Towers of the Jupiter is on the case. He believes it is a just case and will pursue it. He is hardly going to be impressed now if I drop it because of my friendship with Mr. Harding. And certainly not because of my respect for his younger daughter. You don't understand, my dear girl.
I do understand, John. I know well that no duty can require you to do this mad, this suicidal thing. I know that you love Eleanor Harding with all your heart. And I tell you now that she loves you as well. Do not break with them while your mind is in doubt.
My mind is not in doubt. I could never forgive myself if I were to give way now because Eleanor Harding is beautiful. I do love her. But for her sake, I cannot go back on this thing which I now commence.
Eleanor, my dear, I thought you'd be out here.
It is such a lovely morning, I thought to take advantage of it. Mr. Bold did not come last night. Do you know why he did not?
Well, Eleanor, I could guess, but it is no use guessing at such things, my dear.
Oh, Papa, do tell me. What's he going to do and what's it all about?
Tell me, Nelly, do you like Mr. Bold much?
Do I like him, Papa?
Yes, Nelly, do you like him? Why shouldn't you like him? But that's a poor word. Do you love him? Come, my love, let us make a clean break of it. Do you tell me what concerns yourself, and I will tell you what concerns me and the hospital.
Ah.
sister tells me you had a delightful party the other evening. I was so sorry I could not be there.
We were all sorry.
I believe, Miss Harding, you understand why at the moment. I think my sister explained to you, Miss Harding.
Pray don't apologise, Mr. Bold. Of your own views you are, of course, the best judge.
Your father is all that is kind and generous. He always was so, but you, Miss Harding, I hope you will not judge me harshly because of
Mr. Bold, you may be sure of one thing. I shall always judge my father to be right. If those who do not know him oppose him, I shall have charity enough to believe that they are wrong through some error of judgment. But should I see him attacked by those who ought to know him, to love him and revere him, of such I shall be constrained to form a different opinion.
Dear heavens! It's preposterous! Have you seen the calumny that Jupiter has had the temerity to publish?
It would hardly be possible, since the newspaper was brought in 10 minutes ago and you have had it ever since. Perhaps you can tell me what has made you so agitated?
I will tell you that directly. The Jupiter has had the cheek to consider it appropriate to put their own spin on this nonsense of Bold's. They have the cheek, the outrageous cheek, to question our right to decide how best we should run our charity, our hospital, our close and our diocese. They have the presumption to imagine that they know how to care for the town's poor folk better.
Surely some little newspaper can have no effect on the matter. It'll all be forgotten by tomorrow.
Some little newspaper. The Jupiter has a circulation of 40,000 copies a day. 40,000! And I have read that each copy is seen by upwards of 5 persons at the least. 200,000 readers reading about our hospital. Of course, the article is given as the voice of the Jupiter. But this will be the work of that no-good hack, Tom Towers.
It is your own fault, Archdeacon. I told you from the beginning how it would end, and Papa has no one to thank but you.
Good gracious, my dear, how can you say so? I am doing my very best.
I wish you had never done so much. If you'd allowed John Bold to come and go there as he and Papa liked, he and Eleanor would have been married by this time, and we should not have heard one word about the whole affair.
But, my dear...
Oh, it is all very well, Archdeacon, but this is all because you didn't like John Bold for a brother-in-law. How is she ever to do better? Papa hasn't got a shilling, and though Eleanor is well enough, she is not at all a taking style of beauty. I'm sure I don't know how she's to marry better than John Bold, or as well, indeed.
But, my dear, Sir Abraham Finley Smythe
Sir Abraham, I have visits to make.
Good morning, Archdeacon. Good morning, Bishop.
Sir Abraham's opinion has come at last.
So I understand.
It is quite favourable. I am so glad.
Yes. Sir Abraham's opinion is that they haven't a leg to stand upon.
But as how, Archdeacon?
Well, in the first place... But you are no lawyer, Warden, and I doubt that you would understand it. The gist of the matter is this. Under Hiram's will, 2 paid guardians have been selected for the hospital. 2 paid servants, one to look after the men, and the other to look after the money. You and Chadwick are these 2 servants, and whether either of you be paid too much or too little, it is clear as daylight that no one can fall foul of either of you for receiving an allotted stipend.
That does seem clear.
Quite clear and very satisfactory. Clearly, the pay to be given to the 2 must depend on the rate of pay for such services according to their market. and only those who manage the hospital must be the judges of this.
And who does manage the hospital?
Oh, let them find that out. That's another question. The action is against you and Chadwick, and that is your defence. And a perfect and fine defence it is. Now that, I think, very satisfactory.
But according to that, I might as well have 1,600 a year as 8, if the managers choose to allot it to me. And as I am one of the managers, that can hardly be a fair arrangement.
Oh, well, that's nothing to the question. The question is whether this intruding fellow is to interfere in an arrangement which everyone knows is essentially just and serviceable to the church.
Did you see the opinion, Archdeacon?
My dear Warden, what I have seen contains exactly the decision which I have just outlined to you. And that, to my mind, is extremely satisfactory. Extremely satisfactory indeed.
I should like to see the opinion. That is a copy of it.
Of course, it is essential that the purport of it should not be known.
Why should it not be known?
What a question to ask. It is like a child is not more innocent than you are in matters of business. Can't you see that if we were to tell them that no action will lie against you, but that some action may lie against some other person, or all persons, that we shall be putting weapons into their hands? The only thing we have to do now is remain quiet, hold our peace, and let them play their own game as they see fit.
And the Jupiter?
Oh, the Jupiter! The Jupiter can break no bones. You must bear with that. There is much, of course, which it is our bounden duty to bear.
If it can be proved that I have a just and honest right to this, as God well knows I always deemed I had, I am not less anxious than another to retain it. But I cannot do it at such a cost as this. I cannot bear this. Could you tell me to do so? Could you tell me to sit here at ease, indifferent and satisfied, while such things as these are said loudly of me in the world?
No, no. You shall be asked to do nothing that is painful. Theophilus, don't advise him. Pray, don't advise the warden to do anything which is painful.
Why, my lord, there are two ways of giving advice. There is advice that is good for the present day, and there is advice that is good for days to come. Now, I cannot bring myself to give the former if it be incompatible with the other.
No. No, I suppose not.
It is not to be supposed but that much pain will spring out of this unnecessarily raised question. We must all have foreseen that. And the matter in no wise has gone on worse than we expected. But it will be weak, yes, and wicked also, to abandon the cause and own ourselves wrong because the inquiry is painful. It is not that you think that there is any justice in these charges, or that you doubt your own right to the wardenship. You are convinced of your own honesty, and yet would yield to them through cowardice.
Cowardice?
Well, would it not be cowardice? Would he not do so because he is afraid to endure the evil things which will be falsely spoken of him? Would that not be cowardice? And of those who understand the subject, how many will believe the Jupiter? Who that really knows you will think the worse of you for what the Jupiter says? I will say nothing of your own comfort, but I do say that you will not be justified in throwing up, in a fit of passion, the only maintenance that Eleanor has.
Oh.
I hope you agree with me, my lord.
Yes, I suppose so.
And you, Warden?
Do not press me for an answer just at present. I will do nothing lightly, and of whatever I do, I will give you and the bishop notice.
Papa, won't you tell me what it is? Papa, do tell me what it is. I know it's about the hospital and what the cruel newspaper has said, but if there be such a cause for sorrow, let us be sorrowful together.
My own child, why should you be unhappy before it is necessary? It may come to that we must leave this place. But till that time comes, why should your young days be clouded?
And is that all, Papa? If that is all, then let us leave it and have light hearts elsewhere. Papa, do not doubt about it. I could be as gay as the day is long in the smallest little cottage, if I could only see you come in and go out with a light heart.
Oh, my dear child, I would gladly give up all delights and pleasures of living here, but I cannot. The Archdeacon, your brother-in-law, has said as much. He said I would be a coward to do so. It would be unmanly to desert my post, merely to escape my present sufferings. Therefore I must bear as best I might the misery prepared for me.
What a frightful man Dr. Grantly is. For all my sister married him, to speak to you in terms of cowardice. And the bishop. Such a sweet man, but he cannot withstand his own son.
I think it would be a much braver man than the bishop to do so.
And as for John Bold...
Now, Eleanor, my dear, do not speak ill of John Bold. He believes he is doing his duty. Besides, I know how very fond of him you are. Indeed, I believe I can rightly say that you love him.
Yes. I own, since you raise it, that I had learned to love him. I did love him once. But I will not, I cannot love him as he has proved himself to be such an enemy to you.
Do not say so. He is no enemy of mine. Do not cast him off, my love. There will be a time when we are much happier, when all these trials and tribulations will be over. Think how happy you will then be to have kept his love throughout.
Oh, Papa.
Now, my dear, let us go and change for dinner, now that we fully understand each other.
Oh, Papa. Mary, I must see your brother and beg from him a great favour. I'll be frank with you, Mary, I'm not coming to him as I was wont to come. I'm coming as a daughter. As a daughter of a father who is in sore distress. I'm going to Mr. Bold to ask him to forgo this pursuit of the wardenship. I must beg him as Papa's friend, as my friend.
As your friend?
Mary, you must, you know, cease any joking about me and Mr. Bold. I'm not ashamed to beg this favour from your brother. But when I have done so, there can never be anything further between us.
But Eleanor, my dear, surely you can appeal for your father as to him being a friend of my brother. And when this matter is properly settled, then you may be all to each other that you were formerly.
But don't you see, Mary, that's just what I cannot be. He must give this up for the sake of his friendship for my father. It would be wrong if he thought I was sacrificing myself to save my father.
But I am sure that you love him. And I am sure that he loves you better than anything in the world.
Love or no love, it will make no difference to my resolve. Mary, you are the most cruel of women. You must swear not to reveal this conversation to anyone. Please promise, Mary.
Very well. I do not believe that you will be able to hold from revealing your own feelings in due time. So I will be silent on the matter. I will go and fetch him.
Good morning.
Good morning, Eleanor, my dear. I am so pleased you have called round. I hope you are well and enjoying this warm weather. I trust Mr. Harding continues in good health.
My father is not very well.
Oh, I am sorry. I'm very sorry to hear that.
It's about my father that I especially wish to speak to you, Mr. Bold. Indeed, I'm here now on purpose to do so. Papa is very unhappy. Very unhappy indeed about this affair of the hospital. You would pity him, Mr. Bold, if you could see how wretched this has made him.
Oh, Miss Harding.
Anyone would pity him. But an old friend as you are, indeed you would. He is an altered man. His cheerfulness is all gone. Anyone would pity him, but an old friend, as you are, indeed you would. He is an altered man. His cheerfulness is all gone. I'm sure, Mr. Bold, it was not you who wrote those cruel things in the newspaper.
No, most certainly not.
No, I'm sure it was not. And Papa has not for a moment thought so. You could not be so cruel. Papa cannot bear to think that people should speak so of him. They say he is robbing the old men and taking the money of the hospital for nothing.
I have never said so, Miss Harding. I would not.
No, I'm sure you have not. But others have said so. And if this goes on, if such things are written again, it will kill Papa.
No one who knows your father personally accuses him for a moment.
But it is he who has to bear the punishment. It is he that suffers. In what form? What has he done wrong? How has he deserved this persecution? He that never had an unkind thought in his life. He that never said an unkind thing.
Oh, my dear, please be comforted. I would never impute a blame personally to your dear father. My friends do not impute such a blame either. You must believe me when I tell you.
Then why should he be so punished? Mr. Bold, why did you begin all this? You, whom we all so value.
Oh, my dearest Eleanor, I would never, if I had not felt it my public duty, I would never have continued with the matter.
Mr. Bold, I have come here to implore you to abandon this proceeding, to implore you to abandon it, to implore you to spare my father, to spare either his life or his reason, for one or the other must pay the forfeit if this goes on. Oh, Mr. Bold, do not drive to distraction a man that has loved you so well.
Surely, John, you cannot refuse her.
I would give her my soul if it would serve her. Everything I have is hers, if she would accept it. My house, my heart, my all. When I see her in sorrow, as she now is, every nerve in my body suffers. No man can love better than I love her.
No! There can be no talk of love between us. Will you protect my father from the evil you have brought upon him?
Oh, Eleanor, I will do anything. Let me tell you how I love you.
No! This is unmanly of you, Mr. Bold. Will you leave my father to die in peace in his quiet home? I will not leave you till you promise me. I'll cling to you in the street. I'll kneel to you before all the people. You shall promise me this. You shall.
Speak to her, John. Answer her. You cannot have the cruelty to refuse her.
I will. I do. All I can do, I will do.
Then may Almighty God bless you forever.
Eleanor, you must understand that I will do all I can do to put an end to the proceedings.
Yes, and bless you for it.
But you must also understand that whilst I may have commenced the proceedings, it has been taken on by others. Others, some of whom are more influential than me. I fear there may still be a passing illusion in the Jupiter. But I will use my best influence to prevent that illusion from being personal. And referring to Mr. Harding, I will ride to Dr. Grantly's rectory this afternoon and inform him of my altered intentions on the subject.
Thank you, Mr. Bold.
Are you going so soon?
Why, yes. I'm so much obliged to you. Papa will feel this to be so kind. Of course I must tell him, and I will say that you will see the Archdeacon.
But may I not say one word for myself?
I will go and fetch some of Cook's seed cake. You know how fond your father is of it.
Eleanor, will you now permit me to speak on my own behalf? You must know how much I love you, how I adore...
No, you must not say so.
Eleanor, please, will you permit me to kneel before you now?
Oh, John!
Father?
I am going to London, my dear.
London, Papa?
Yes, my dear, to London. I will have this matter settled some way. There are some things, Eleanor, which I cannot bear.
Oh, Papa, what is it? Oh, come. Come back into the house. I've had such good news for you, and now you make me fear I'm too late. I've just this moment been with John Bold, and he assures me that the case is to be abandoned.
Mr. Bold can act as he thinks proper, my love. If Mr. Bold has been wrong, of course he will discontinue what he is doing. But that cannot change my purpose.
Oh, I thought you would have been so happy.
Mr. Bold can act as he thinks proper, my love. If Mr. Bold thinks he has been wrong, of course he will discontinue what he is doing. But that cannot change my purpose.
Papa, I thought you'd have been so happy. I thought all would have been right now.
Mr. Bold has set great people to work. So great that I doubt whether they are now in his control. You have not seen today's edition of the Jupiter, I presume?
Oh, no, Father. You know I refused to read that nonsense since it started printing such unfair things about you.
Yes, well, it continues to print such things about me. Whether unfair or not, I cannot say.
Papa, dear Papa.
Mr. Bold can't have those things unwritten. Mr. Bold can't say that that can't be read by every clergyman at Oxford. Nay, by every gentleman in the land.
But, Papa, I really...
And I tell you what, my dear, Mr. Bold cannot dispute the truth in every word of those articles. Nor can I. Nor can I, Eleanor. That's the worst of all. I have thought much of all this since we were together last night. I have thought much of what the Archdeacon has said, and of what this paper says. And I do believe I have no right to be here.
No right to be warden of the hospital, Papa.
No right to be warden with 800 a year. No right to be warden with such a house. No right to spend in luxury money that was intended for charity. Mr. Bold may do as he pleases about the suit, but I hope he will not abandon it for my sake. They will not put forward this plea on my behalf. I will go up to London to see these lawyers myself, and if no better excuse can be found for me than that, I and the hospital will part.
But the Archdeacon, Papa. Will the Archdeacon go with you?
I intend to be in London before the Archdeacon is aware. That is why I'm leaving now.
But, Father, cannot you leave your departure for London until the morning? If you catch an early train, you can still be there before Dr. Grantly finds out.
Well, yes, I suppose so. If you think it wise.
I do indeed. And I will help you pack, for I'm sure you will not have managed that well. And, Papa...
Yes, my dear?
There is something else I need to tell you about Mr. Bold. Something very particular about Mr. Bold and myself.
I wondered when you might have something very particular to say about Mr. Bold and yourself. Come, let's go in then. And you can tell me when you scold me for my poor pack.
Mr. Bold to see you, sir.
Yes, show him in. I hope you'll forgive my calling, Dr. Grantly.
Certainly, certainly. I can assure you, no apology is necessary from Mr. Bold. Only let me know what I can do for him. So, Mr. Bold, what can I do for you?
Sir, I have considered the matter of the case against the hospital, and in particular, how the matter impinges on my good friend Mr. Harding. As I say, I have considered the matter, and I realise that there are those who, because of my actions, are receiving blame, where none should rest. That is to say, in short, I am no longer going to pursue the case.
And so, Mr. Bold, I'm to understand that you are desirous of abandoning this attack upon Mr. Harding.
Dr. Grantly, there has been no attack, and I assure you.
Well, we won't quarrel about words. I should call it an attack. Most men would so call an endeavour to take away from a man every shilling of income that he has to live upon. So, you wish to abandon this little game of backgammon you've begun?
I intend to put an end to the legal proceedings which I have commenced.
Well, I can't say that I'm surprised. Carrying on a losing lawsuit when one has nothing to gain but everything to pay is not pleasant.
You misinterpret my motives, Dr. Grantly. However, that is of little consequence. Good morning.
One moment. I don't exactly appreciate the taste which induced you to make any personal communication to me on the subject. You'll excuse me if I ask you to hear my reply to your communication. You are going to abandon this lawsuit.
Yes, Dr. Grantly, I am.
Having somewhat ostentatiously declared that it was your duty to protect those poor old fools whom you've humbugged there at the hospital, you find that the game now costs more than it's worth, and so you make up your mind to have done with it. A prudent resolution, Mr. Bold. Has it struck you that we may not now choose to give over? Are you aware, sir, what will be the probable cost of securing the services of the Attorney General?
Not in the least, Dr. Grantly.
No, I dare say not, sir. When you recklessly put this affair into the hands of your friend Mr. Finney, you were indifferent as to the cost and suffering such a proceeding might entail on others. Are you aware, sir, that these crushing costs must now come out of your own pocket?
Any demand of such a nature which Mr. Harding's lawyer may have to make will doubtless be made to my lawyer.
Mr. Harding's lawyer and my lawyer. Did you come here merely to refer me to the lawyers? And now, sir, I will tell you what my opinion is. My opinion is that we shall not allow you to withdraw this matter from the courts.
You can do as you please, Dr. Grantly. Good morning.
Hear me out, sir. I have here the last opinion given on this matter by Sir Abraham Finlay Smythe. I dare say that you have heard of this already. I dare say it has something to do with your visit here today.
I know nothing whatsoever of Sir Abraham Finlay Smythe or his opinion.
Be that as it may, here it is. He declares that you have not a leg to stand upon, that Mr. Harding is as safe in his hospital as I am here in my rectory. And you expect me to make you a low bow for your kind offer to release Mr. Harding from the toils of your net? Sir, your net is not strong enough to hold him. Sir, your net fell to pieces, and you knew that well enough before I told you. And now, sir, I will wish you a good morning, for I am busy.
I came here, Dr. Grantly, with the warmest, kindest feelings, and they have been most grossly outraged by your treatment.
Of course they have. Of course they have. I have not chosen to see my father-in-law ruined. What an outrage that has been to your feelings. Good day, Mr. Bold. You can see yourself out.
If there be a devil, a real devil here on earth, it is Dr. Grantly.
But where are you going?
To London, to speak to Towers of the Jupiter, to try and put a stop to these articles on Hiram's hospital.
Mr. Harding, Sir Abraham?
Sorry to keep you, Mr. Warden, and sorry too to name such a disagreeable an hour. But, as your notice was short, and as you said today, I named the very earliest hour that was not disposed of.
Oh, not at all, Sir Abraham. It is I that should apologise for coming up to London with no notice.
And so, all our troubles over this lawsuit is at an end.
Oh, I do hope so. But pardon me, I'm not quite sure what you mean in saying so.
Oh, precisely as I say. All over. Don't you know their attorneys have notified us they've withdrawn the suit?
Indeed? I know nothing of this. I had heard in a roundabout sort of way that such an intention had been talked of. But, Sir Abraham, my trouble over this matter is not, I fear, at an end. I thought I might venture to seek your advice.
Of course. My clients are entitled to the best opinion I can give them, particularly a client as respectable, if I may say so, as the Warden of Barchester Hospital.
The truth is, I cannot help seeing, that the affairs of the hospital are not arranged according to the will of the founder.
None of such institutions are, Mr. Harding, nor can they be. The altered circumstances in which we live do not admit of it.
Quite true. That is quite true. But I cannot see that those altered circumstances give me a right to 800 a year. What I want you, Sir Abraham, to tell me is this. Am I, as Warden, legally entitled to the proceeds of the property after the due maintenance of the 12 bedesmen?
Well now, I'm not sure I would say in so many words that the Warden is legally entitled to. That is to say, circumstances change over the years. We cannot know what the founder originally intended when he wrote that will so many years ago. But I see no further ground for any question. I do not see you have the power of raising it.
I can resign.
What? And throw it up altogether?
Did you see those articles in the Jupiter?
Well, yes, but of course, if you have private means sufficient for your wants, and if that is the way you wish to go and proceed.
I haven't a sixpence, Sir Abraham.
And God bless me, Mr. Harding, why? How do you intend to live?
I have the precentorship of Barchester Cathedral. That brings in £80 a year. I mean to fall back upon the living at Crabtree too, which will bring in another £80.
I really think, Mr. Harding, you had better wait for the Archdeacon. This is a most serious step, one of which, in my opinion, there is not the slightest necessity. A man is never the best judge of his own position.
A man is the best judge of what he feels himself.
Have you not a daughter, Mr. Harding, an unmarried daughter?
I have, Sir Abraham, and she and I are completely agreed on the subject.
Pray excuse me, Mr. Harding, if what I say seems impertinent. But surely it is you who should be prudent on her behalf. She is young. She does not know the meaning of living off an income of £160 a year. On her account, give up this idea.
But if this income be not justly mine, it would be better to beg.
My dear sir, nobody now questions its justness.
Yes, Sir Abraham, one does question it. The most important of all witnesses against me, I question it myself. My God knows whether or no I love my daughter. But I would sooner that she and I should beg, than that she should live in comfort on money which is truly the property of the poor. When I came here, I did not know that the suit was withdrawn. As there is no action, there can be no defence. And my purpose in coming here was to beg you to abandon my defence. But it is at any rate as well that you should know that from tomorrow I shall cease to be warden of the hospital.
You'll sleep on this tonight, Mr. Harding, and tomorrow?
I have done more than sleep upon it. I have laid awake upon it, and that night after night. I found I could not sleep upon it. Now I hope to do so. And now, I think I have taken enough of your time. I will leave you in peace and wish you good night.
Yes. Yes, good night, Mr. Harding. Good night.
Papa, I thought you were never coming back. It's 12 o'clock.
Yes, my dear. The Attorney-General named 10 for my meeting. To be sure, 10 is late. But what could I do? Great men will have their own way. I see you've also come to London. And up as late?
And you have absolutely been with the Attorney-General.
Indeed I have.
Good heavens, how unfortunate. Did you not know that it is not customary for clients to go direct to their counsel?
Isn't it?
But, Papa, what did you say to Sir Abraham?
I asked him, my dear, to explain John Hiram's will to me. He couldn't explain it in the only way which would have satisfied me, and so I resigned the wardenship.
Resigned it? Good heavens.
At least I told Sir Abraham that I would resign. And of course, I must now do so.
Not at all. Nothing that you can say in such a way to your own counsel can be in any way binding on you. I'm sure Sir Abraham must have advised you to consult your friends.
Well, yes, he did.
Well then, your threat of resignation amounts to nothing, and we are just where we were before.
I think I'll go to bed.
At any rate, you promised me to take no further step without consultation. Such a declaration as that you made to Sir Abraham means nothing. Come, Warden, promise me this. Promise us this.
I'm sure Susan will not ask me to break my word, or to do what I know to be wrong.
Oh, but Papa, it would be madness in you to throw up your preferment. What are you to live on?
God that feeds the young ravens will take care of me also.
Oh.
Pish! If the ravens persisted in refusing the food prepared for them, they wouldn't be fed.
I will have the living of Crabtree.
£80 a year.
And the precentorship?
It goes with the wardenship. My dear Warden, this is all nonsense. £80 or 160. It makes very little difference. You can't live on it. You can't ruin Eleanor's prospects forever.
Do think of Eleanor, Papa.
I do think of her.
And you will not do this rash thing.
It can never be rash to do right. I shall certainly resign this wardenship.
Such absurdity is enough to provoke Job. Your father is like a child. £800 a year. And to throw that up because some scoundrel writes an article in a newspaper. Well, I have done my duty. If he chooses to ruin his child, I cannot help it.
Good night, my dear.
Good night.
Good morning.
Good morning, Papa. Are you going to write to someone, Papa?
I'm going to write my resignation to the bishop.
Oh, pray put it off until our return. Pray put it off until you have seen the bishop. For my sake, for Eleanor.
It is for your sake and for Eleanor's that I do this. I hope at least that my children may never have to be ashamed of their father.
Oh, how can you talk of shame, Papa? You know how would your friends think of this question? You won't refuse me this one request. You won't refuse to delay your letter by 2 short days. What difference can 2 days make?
My dear, I cannot alter the resolution to which I have come, nor can I delay it. You may add to my present unhappiness by pressing me, but you cannot change my purpose. It would be a comfort to me if you would let the matter rest. My Lord Bishop, it is with the greatest pain that I feel myself constrained to resign into your lordship's hands the wardenship of the hospital of Barchester, which you so kindly conferred upon me now over 10 years since. I need not explain the circumstances which...
I had intended to meet you at the station with the pony carriage, only you did not let me know which train you were to catch.
My darling girl, that is quite all right. Young Harold, the Dean's nephew, was by chance on the same train as me. He very kindly gave me a seat in his carriage. Now, my dear, I hope you'll be able to feel a proper degree of respect for the Vicar of Crabtree.
Oh, Papa, I'm so glad. I'm sure we shall be very comfortable.
Indeed, And of course I take comfort in knowing that you're soon to have a rather different home of your own.
Oh, yes, Papa, and you know, whatever future home I might have, you will always be welcome to spend as much time there as you can.
I know, my dear, and I am content wherever I live to know that you are soon to be happy with the man you love.
And so our tale is done. Mr. Harding has not moved far from his old home. He now has lodgings in the High Street. 3 months after becoming settled there, Eleanor became Mrs. Bold, and of course removed to her husband's house. As for the Archdeacon, perhaps we have been a little unfair on him. After all, we have had to deal with his foibles. Dr. Grantly is a gentleman and a man of conscience. He is generous to the poor and hospitable to the rich. It is true to say that there were some difficulties to be got over on the occasion of Eleanor's marriage. But not long after the marriage, perhaps 6 months, the Archdeacon consented to meet John Bold at a dinner party. Since that time, they have become almost friends. And what of our dear friend, Mr. Harding? He is not an unhappy man. He keeps his lodgings, but is not there often. His time is spent chiefly at his daughter's house. When not with the Bolds, he can invariably be found dining with his friend the bishop, at the episcopal palace. It has taken some time before the people of Barchester have forgotten to call Mr. Harding by his long, well-known name. It had become so customary to say Mr. Warden that it was not easily dropped.
No, not Warden now, only Precentor.